Hello and welcome back to the Whisper Dark channel. Tonight we've got another chilling tale for you, so dim those lights, get comfortable and settle in for the video. John Fitzgerald Kennedy lived a life that seemed almost too vibrant for this world. Born in 1917 into a wealthy and prestigious family, he grew up sailing the waters around Cape Cod with his 8 siblings, learning early on to live life with boldness and courage. During World War II, when his patrol boat PT-109 was sliced in half by a Japanese destroyer, the young lieutenant swam for hours through shark-infested waters, towing an injured crewmate to safety. That act of bravery followed him into his political career, where his charisma and movie star presence captivated a nation ready for change. But on November 22nd, 1963, in the bright Dallas, Texas sunlight, everything changed in an instant. The president who promised to put a man on the moon, who stood up to the Soviet Union during the Cuban Missile Crisis, was gone before he could finish the work he started. Maybe that's why his spirit can't find peace. From the spot where he took his last breath to the places he loved most in life, people say John F. Kennedy still walks among us, unable to let go of this world. On Dallas's Elm Street, a white X painted on the asphalt marks the exact spot where President Kennedy's life ended. It's a simple white mark on black pavement, but those who visit say standing on it feels anything but simple. Sandra Mitchell, a teacher from Ohio, can't forget her visit to Dealey Plaza 5 years ago. She was leading a field trip to teach her students about history, but what she felt there wasn't in any textbook. Sandra's voice still trembled as she shared her story. I was standing on that X, telling my kids what happened there. Suddenly, this overwhelming sadness washed over me. It wasn't my sadness. It was like someone else's grief was pouring into me. The air felt 10 degrees colder, and I swear, I felt someone standing right behind me. But when I turned around, no one was there. Sandra's experience wasn't unique. Hundreds of visitors to Dealey Plaza have reported a sudden, inexplicable sadness that seems to come out of nowhere. Tour guide Ken Williams, who's worked the plaza for 15 years, has seen it all. People just start crying out of the blue. Grown men, tough guys. One minute they're fine, and the next they're sobbing like kids. They all say the same thing. It feels like someone's sharing their pain with them. Strange reports also come from the nearby 6th floor museum, housed in the old Texas School Book Depository. That's where Lee Harvey Oswald allegedly shot the president. Museum visitors often say they feel an unseen presence brush past them as they look out the window toward the street below. Security cameras have caught people jumping back from the window, claiming someone touched their shoulder, even though they were completely alone. Night security guard James has a story that's even creepier. Last winter, during his rounds, James was checking the 6th floor when he heard footsteps echoing in the empty halls. I thought maybe someone stayed past closing, so I called out. The footsteps stopped. Then I heard a voice, real soft, saying, "I'm still here." The hair on my arm stood up. I've done security for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like that. Paranormal researchers believe the violent and sudden nature of Kennedy's death created a residual energy, a spiritual imprint that replays the trauma over and over. Dr. Eleanor, who studies unexplained phenomena, thinks the millions of visitors to Dealey Plaza bring their own emotional energy. When so much collective grief and fascination focuses on one spot, it can amplify any spiritual presence, she says. Boston's Union Oyster House has been serving seafood since 1826, making it America's oldest continuously operating restaurant. For a young Senator John Kennedy, it was a sanctuary from the pressures of politics. He loved the privacy of booth 18 in the upstairs dining room, where he could enjoy his favorite New England clam chowder without reporters or voters bothering him. The restaurant later named it the Kennedy Booth, and that's when the trouble started. Restaurant manager Patricia has worked at the Union Oyster House for 12 years and has heard every story about the Kennedy Booth. But 3 years ago, on a busy Saturday night, she started believing them herself. Patricia's hands fidgeted with her apron as she told her story. I was passing by booth 18 when I saw him, a man in a dark suit sitting there, but something was off. He looked blurry around the edges, like an old photograph. When I blinked, he was gone. Patricia's encounter was just the beginning. Server Jenny's story is even more unsettling. Last Halloween night, after closing, Jenny was cleaning the upstairs dining room when she reached the Kennedy booth. As she wiped down a mirror nearby, she saw something that froze her blood. In the mirror's reflection, she could see a handsome man sitting in the booth with thick brown hair, wearing a navy suit. He was staring at her through the mirror, but when she turned to look at the actual booth, it was completely empty. Jenny's hands were shaking so bad, she dropped her cleaning rag. She ran downstairs to get the manager, but when they came back, there was nothing there except a faint whiff of expensive cologne lingering in the air. "I've never been so scared in my life," Jenny said. "It felt like he wanted to tell me something, but I was too terrified to listen." The kitchen staff has their own stories. Cook Danny swears he's heard orders for clam chowder coming from booth 18 during lunch rushes. But when servers go to check, the booth is empty. It's always the same order: New England clam chowder, extra crackers, and a cup of black coffee. That was Kennedy's old usual. Head waiter Gary, who's been at the restaurant for 25 years, is skeptical of ghost stories but can't explain what happened last month. I was setting up for dinner service, putting fresh flowers on the table. When I got to the Kennedy booth, I placed a small vase of roses in the center. 5 minutes later, I came back with water and the flowers were gone. No petals on the floor, no broken stems. They just vanished. Regular customers have seen strange things too. Elizabeth, a frequent patron, comes to the Union Oyster House every month with her book club. We always ask for booth 18 because of the history, but lately we've had to request a different table. There's this heavy sadness at that booth. It feels like someone's grieving and it ruins our whole evening. Despite these eerie encounters, the Union Oyster House staff insist their restaurant isn't haunted by Kennedy's spirit. They think it could be any number of historical figures who've dined there over the centuries, but paranormal investigator Michael disagrees. Kennedy was such an iconic figure. His distinct look and style are hard to mistake. If people are seeing a handsome man in a suit who looks like Kennedy, it's probably Kennedy. Deep in the heart of Yosemite National Park, the WWII Hotel was John Kennedy's favorite escape from the grind of Washington politics. This grand lodge, with its soaring ceilings and massive fireplaces, was the perfect backdrop for family vacations. In 1962, President Kennedy stayed on the third floor and specifically requested a rocking chair to ease his chronic back pain. No one knew that simple chair would become the centerpiece of one of America's most persistent ghost stories. Hotel maintenance worker Tom was the first to witness the impossible. During his evening rounds in March 2018, Tom was checking the third floor hallway when he heard a creaking sound from Kennedy's room. "I thought maybe a window was open and something was moving in the breeze, but when I checked the room with my master key, I saw that old rocking chair moving back and forth, slow and steady, like someone was sitting in it. The weird thing was, there was no breeze. All the windows were closed." Tom stood frozen in the doorway for what felt like hours, but was probably just seconds. The chair kept up its gentle rocking as if an invisible person was relaxing in it. I backed out of that room so fast, I nearly tripped over my own feet. I've worked here 8 years, and I've never seen anything like that. Housekeeping supervisor Maria has her own unsettling experience with room 321. Last summer, while preparing the room for new guests, Maria noticed the rocking chair was out of place. We always keep it in the corner by the window, but when I walked in, it was facing the bed, like someone had been sitting there watching whoever was sleeping. Maria thought a staff member might have moved it, but when she asked, no one had touched it. Stranger still, when she moved it back to the corner, she returned an hour later to find it moved again. It happened 3 times before I gave up. I left it where it wanted to be and cleaned around it. The whole time, I felt like someone was watching me. Another story comes from guest Becky, who stayed in the Kennedy room last fall for her anniversary trip. She and her husband David were hoping for a romantic getaway, but the second night turned into something out of a horror movie. I woke up around 3 in the morning because I heard a creaking sound. In the moonlight coming through the window, I saw the rocking chair's shadowy shape moving back and forth. But the really terrifying part was that I could see the shadow of a person sitting in it. Becky woke her husband, but when David looked at the chair, it had stopped moving and the shadow was gone. They stayed up the rest of the night, too scared to close their eyes. We checked out first thing the next morning. I told the front desk what we saw, and the clerk just nodded like she'd heard it all before. Hotel manager Jonathan has worked at the WWII for 15 years and keeps a professional stance on ghost stories, but admits there's something unusual about room 321. We've had multiple guests ask to switch rooms. They always say it feels like they're not alone, especially at night. Some say they hear the chair rocking even when it's perfectly still. The hotel's night auditor, Lillian, is used to these strange reports. On my shift, I get at least one call a month from room 321. Guests complain about noises or say someone's in their room. When security checks, there's no one there. But we always find the rocking chair facing a different direction than it was during the day. The 1961 Lincoln Continental presidential limousine sits behind bulletproof glass at the Henry Ford Museum in Dearborn, Michigan. After President Kennedy's assassination, this midnight blue convertible was completely rebuilt with armor plating and a permanent roof and was used by 4 more presidents until it was retired in 1977. Today, it's the museum's most popular exhibit, drawing thousands of visitors who want to see this tangible piece of American history. But for some museum staff, the limousine brings more than historical intrigue. It brings genuine fear. Security guard Frankie has worked the night shift at the Henry Ford Museum for 7 years, but nothing prepared him for what he saw on November 22, 2019, the 56th anniversary of Kennedy's death. I was doing my usual patrol around midnight when I saw someone standing by the presidential limousine. At first, I thought it was another guard, but as I got closer, I realized something was wrong. The figure by the car was wearing a dark suit and seemed to be waving to an invisible crowd. Frankie called out for them to identify themselves, but the figure didn't respond. Then it hit me. It looked familiar. Thick brown hair, that posture. It was just like President Kennedy, but it was impossible because he was translucent, like I could see right through him. Frankie radioed for backup, but when the other guard arrived, the figure was gone. All that was left was a single red rose lying on the limousine's hood. He and his colleagues searched the entire museum, but there was no sign of an intruder. The building was completely locked down. No one could have gotten in, but that rose was real. We had to remove it before the museum opened the next day. The most dramatic encounter came from maintenance worker Steve on the last anniversary. Steve was cleaning the exhibit area when he heard what sounded like someone trying to talk to him. I heard a voice, soft but clear. It said it was 2 men, then something about trees and a grassy knoll. It felt like whoever was speaking was trying to tell me some important truth. Steve looked around but saw no one. Then, to his shock, he watched a red rose appear out of thin air on the limousine's hood. I never believed in religion or ghosts, but after that night, I know there's something beyond what we can see. It felt like the president wanted to tell the real story of what happened. Night janitor Betty has worked at the museum for 12 years and expects unusual activity every November 22nd. The temperature around that car always drops on the anniversary. You feel it as soon as you walk into that section, and there's always this sense that someone's watching you. But when you turn around, no one's there. Betty has seen those mysterious red roses multiple times, always carefully placed on the limousine's hood. I've tried staying up all night to see who's leaving them, but somehow they appear when I'm not looking. 1 minute the car's clean, the next there's a perfect red rose. It gives me chills every time. What's striking about these encounters is their consistency. Year after year, on the anniversary of Kennedy's death, museum staff report the same phenomena. A man in a suit standing by the limousine, red roses appearing, and messages about the truth of his assassination. It's as if Kennedy's spirit returns to the site of his final ride each year, still trying to set the record straight about that terrible day in Dallas. John F. Kennedy's restless spirit seems tied to the places that defined his life and death. From the tragic streets of Dallas to his favorite restaurant in Boston, from the peaceful retreat of Yosemite to the museum where his final ride is preserved, witnesses still report a presence that refuses to fade into history. Maybe his spirit lingers because his story feels unfinished, his promises unfulfilled, or maybe some souls shine so brightly in life that death can't fully extinguish their light. Whatever the reason, those who encounter Kennedy's ghost describe the same sense of sadness and urgency, as if he's still trying to connect with the world he left behind, still trying to make a difference. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story and want more, hit that subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up. It takes just a second. It's free and it helps the channel a ton. Good night.